All right, the last match that once again we were hoping against hope for the AEW title, MJF versus Moxley. And I will tell you this, to be quite honest with you, when it was over with, I considered this, Brian, one of the best, if not the best, babyface performances I have seen in AEW to date. I really thought that. The problem was, it was the heel that was doing it. Did you see what I saw?
I didn't think of it in that context. What did you see?
People, go back and watch the match, and you tell me that if there had been fans in that arena, that by the time that MJF, bleeding, battered, having been given 18 fucking finishes, on his knees, started firing back up at Jon Moxley, that MJF would not have gotten a huge babyface fucking response. This match, if you go and watch it, thinking in your mind who is the babyface and who is the heel from the start, MJF was Ricky Morton and Moxley was the heel. And I'll tell you why. They started out as a wrestling match. Imagine that. I think they actually locked up. That may have been a first for the night. MJF, as I've mentioned, he's got poise, he's got timing, the way he moves in the ring, he's a natural worker, plus he has the facials, the heel attitude, the body language, whatever. So they wrestle for a minute or two, and then Moxley's got to do the fucking dive, right? Because everybody else does it, so why shouldn't I do it? But then from the time that, go back and watch, folks, Moxley does the dive, now they're not 3 minutes in. And after he does the dive, they spend 1 minute and 45 seconds on the floor while Moxley beats up MJF in front of Wardlow and the referee, who did absolutely nothing about it, in the opening minutes of the match. Now, here's the thing. A lot of people are going to say, well, the psychology should be that the heel, or that the babyface is mad at what the heel's done to him, so he's naturally going to fucking open up hot, right? Well, goddamn, opening up hot and dropping the atomic bomb on Hiroshima is a little bit different. Besides the fact that until a few days ago, Moxley had pretty much one-upped MJF, as we've mentioned, at every turn, and fucking hospitalized his lawyer and whatever the fuck else before they finally got that heat last week. Shouldn't the babyface beat the fucking heel up in the ring first in a reasonably legal fashion, even if he is mad? So then later on, when the fucking heel gets heat on the babyface, then the babyface blows his big comeback, then he can take him out on the floor, and he can bash him in the rails, and he can hit him with the chairs, and he can throw him across the furniture, because now you're going up. Moxley is such a fucking ultra-violent goof for all this garbage, hardcore deathmatch indie wrestling. He's got to get that shit in 3 minutes of the match. They spend 2 minutes out on the floor. What else? In front of Wardlow, so he's a fucking limp dick. The referee has no authority. And how are you going to fucking kick that up later on after you've already fought all around the ring? Can Moxley not have a match without doing indie garbage bullshit? The answer now we know is no, he can't. They got back in the ring for a little bit. Then they did an apron spot where MJF yanked his arm down, Moxley's arm onto the apron. Moxley was going to give him some fucking wing doodle on the goddamn apron, and MJF yanks his arm onto the apron. That's the heat spot. Was that the most contrived way to use the apron ever in history? What the fuck? Can't they do anything in the ring? A heat spot. Get up on the fucking top rope. Let MJF fucking run up real quick. Give him a divorce court. Off the top onto the end of the ring. Hurt his arm where he could take a bump and everybody could see it instead of out on the floor again. I like watching MJF, but not against this guy. So now MJF is getting heat on the babyface, who for the first 5 minutes of the match has broken every rule in the book. And MJF is getting the heat on him by out wrestling him. Do you see? They get arm locks and hold him down. You got a hold on him. The heel is wrestling. The babyface was fucking brawling all around the goddamn building. Noted the lack of crowd noise. They go back to the floor, and Moxley boomerangs MJF into the fucking ring post, and then goes in. And how ridiculous is this? That he was trying to, was it Rambo his shoulder back into place? Was it Rambo Rambo sewed himself up? Who put his own? No, it was the guy from Lethal Weapon. Mel Gibson puts his own shoulder back in like it's dislocated. He's going to put it back in by hitting the turnbuckle pad. No, you're just hitting your goddamn sore shoulder, you fucking moron. But that was to cover up MJF getting his color because MJF comes up bleeding. Brian? Yes? Did you believe going into this match that MJF was going to win this match?
I was hoping MJF would win this match, yes.
But did you believe in your heart of hearts that MJF was going to come out of this the new champion?
I don't...
No, you didn't believe it for a second they were going to switch the belt. Go ahead and admit it.
I didn't. I was hoping they would. I didn't think they would.
Did anything that they have done on television up to possibly the last 2 minutes of last Wednesday night's program give you the impression that MJF was going to win this fucking match?
No, it gave me the impression that the whole feud was a joke.
Then why is MJF the one bleeding? Why is Moxley not bleeding? Why is the champion not in jeopardy? This match was, and once again, I'm sure MJF, 24 years old, he's not going to tell the big ex-WWF star what to do. But you have a fucking supposed hot angle with a challenger that nobody believes is going to win, that the booking has not done anything to make people believe he's going to win. So when the match starts out, pretty much the babyface breaks every rule in the book, beats up the fucking heel, including taunting him. Come on, get up so I can beat you up some more, until he about gets tired of it. Then he makes a mistake, and the heel gets heat on the heel gets heat on the babyface by wrestling. And then Moxley makes a comeback. And to make sure that everybody knows that he's still not in trouble and that MJF has no chance, now MJF is the one that's bleeding a gusher instead of Moxley. Then, in this weird, perverse manner of supposed psychology booking that the younger folks like to use, Moxley hits a black hole slam just like Abyss on MJF on the floor. MJF was trying to sell it like a dead man, and dumb fuck jerks him up and rolls him back in the ring. As soon as he rolls MJF back in the ring, watch this, kids. As soon as he rolled him back in the ring from the black hole slam, as he goes to get MJF in the ring, he tells MJF, get my arm. Because MJF suddenly, after being black hole slammed 10 seconds before on the concrete floor, now grabs and takes an arm lock on fucking Moxley so that Moxley can reverse into that backslide fucking deal thing, whatever the fuck. So he actually, and you can see him call it to get my arm. So the guy that just got fucking power slammed on the concrete has to suddenly go on offense to get a fucking arm lock so that Moxley can fucking come out of it. Because that's the only thing in the world that Moxley could do right there. He couldn't do anything else. Then, so then when he gets the arm, then that's when he fucking turns into the goddamn thing where he picks MJF up and hits the Gotch pile driver and gets a 2 count. Black hole slam, guys, back up. Gotch pile driver, 2 count. Bleeding, takes this abuse. On his knees now, fighting back, throwing chops. He becomes the sympathetic underdog. MJF is the toughest guy in wrestling. Nothing could beat him. But that's the problem. That's in their little pea brains, because they're still playing checkers and they've never talked to any experts. Moxley was doing MJF a favor by hitting him with all his stuff and letting him kick out. Show how good he is. You dumb shit. No. You've got it completely ass backwards. You turned this kid babyface. If there had been fans there after MJF had gone through all the abuse and mistreatment he had gone through, he's bleeding, he's getting these big moves hit, and he still keeps fighting back, the people would have been chanting MJF, MJF. I'm telling you, this was, with people in the building, this was a fucking turn. Not intended to be, but it would have been. And Moxley's taunting him, get up, kid. MJF spits in Moxley's face. You think that would not have been a huge pop from the crowd? Now the announcers are trying to fucking sell it. Well, the disrespect. Disrespect? It's what Steve Austin would have fucking done in the same position on his knees in front of that guy. The people would have cheered. And then when MJF got the fucking Fujiwara, the people would have fucking blown. They would have sensed an underdog, somebody they wanted to cheer for. He switched the complexion of the thing completely. And if all of this was leading to MJF winning the fucking belt, you would have made a new superstar. Because he persevered through all that shit. When MJF hit that heat seeker, that leaping pile driver thing he does, that was a fucking false finish the fans would have bought. And they would have booed that Moxley kicked out of it. I guarantee you. And then Mox reverses the fucking second heat seeker. And at that point, even the announcers are saying, well, MJF sure has guts. Boy, he's acquitted himself much better than we would have thought. It's a double turn. The punches, the headbutts, the slaps on their knees. Finally, MJF gets the low blow for the 2 count. When they distracted the referee out of the sleeper, I guarantee you the people would have fucking cheered the low blow. And then he hits the crossroads for the 2 count. This part, okay, now, after all of that, if you don't mind the fact that the only real heel in your company has been switched babyface by the way that this match was put together. MJF is cooking like a heel should be in the closing moments of this thing, and the babyface is in jeopardy. Finally, the people are in the right place. MJF hits the low blow, 2 count. MJF hits crossroads, 2 count. And now the heel, supposedly, MJF has to cheat. Wardlow gets up and draws the referee, throws the diamond ring in, but bungles the fucking toss. Okay, it hit him, boom, and dropped down in that thing. MJF's bleeding anyway. He may not have been able to really fucking find it. But he went down to get it with the blood in his eyes and everything, and right as he sees it, he looks up. Moxley has the opportunity. They lock eyes. Mox doesn't fucking goddamn stand there and fucking twinkle toes like Olivier would have. He grabs him, hooks the band move, his DDT finish. 1, 2, 3. Finally, not only did they distract the referee halfway decently, they gave MJF an out. The finish worked because MJF finally has the champ going. It looks like finally, after all this time, he might be legitimate, a threat, and win this thing. But he can't finish him, so he's got to cheat, because that's what the heel does. But he was foiled, because heels sometimes are not good cheaters. And then the babyface had Moxley had the reason to go back on his word, his agreement, and use the band hold to retain his title because MJF had tried to cheat first. But MJF still had an out because if that goddamn Wardlow had tossed the ring right. So the last 60, 90 seconds, everybody was right back in the same place they were supposed to be. But for the rest of the fucking match, which was also very long, now that I've said this, do you see where people would have gotten behind MJF in this fucking match the way it was laid out?
I agree with what you're saying, except I don't know if the AEW fans would have gotten behind him over Moxley.
Normal people would have. I'm not the AEW fans, they are what they are. I'm talking about a normal audience of people there to see a wrestling event instead of a goddamn live taping of Benny Hill. If you just got a group of 10,000 people in an arena, MJF would have been the babyface. By the time it was over with, they would have been cheering for him. And it's not because he didn't try. It's because he's fucking being led by the king of ultra violence, who ought to go back to fucking whatever barn CZW is working in this fucking season. Anyway, we love MJF. He did the best he could here. We've said it before. Moxley's matches are not good. And it's too much indie bullshit instead of trying to create stars and simulate athletic conflict.
Yeah, You know, there were some really talented guys on this show. Obviously, the Matt Hardy incident, the Shooting Star Press botch, various things, the crowd being out of it. Despite the talented guys on this show, I have to say, for me, this was one of the worst pay-per-views I ever saw. It was a struggle from around the time of the Battle Royal on to have to sit here and just everything went on forever. The only thing that didn't go on forever was the Matt Hardy incident. And who knows how long that would have gone on.
Yeah, and they were already, goddamn, they went at least half the time, if not shorter, that they were probably going to go because of the injury. I'm not saying it should have gone any longer, but how long would this fucking fiasco of a show have been if they'd gone their allotted time? And why did they feel the need when they got a match that went short to make it up by going longer elsewhere? It just will never fucking end. Because it's a basement booker that has had fantasies of putting these names down on paper and getting them to do his will, and he doesn't want it to end, even though the fans do. In some cases, the fans would like a few of these things if it never started. Once again, are they defending this? Who's defending this? Who's defending any of this? Who's saying any of these matches were good?
I'm not saying anyone's defending it. There are some people who enjoyed the show in spite of itself, but you're hearing from a lot of people, including AEW fans, who had a lot of problems with this show, who felt the energy, the Matt Hardy incident, the management of the Matt Hardy incident. Just the show didn't work. It was really not good. And even the most hardcore AEW fans are kind of having to admit this was a miss, a giant miss, and a giant exposure of what AEW is.
There is a lot of times where you'll have a bad show and or things don't work out and the cake doesn't always rise, etc., blah, blah, blah. But under the best of circumstances, if the show comes off like you wanted it to, it's good. If this show had come off like they wanted it to, it still wouldn't have been any good, because a lot of the reason why it wasn't any good was because they meant to do some of this shit on purpose. And I don't know what you do about that. Otherwise than just write him off and say they will never learn. He's not going to learn. Nobody's going to tell him. Enough of the people that he's listening to think this shit is good because it involves them and the only thing they're able to do.
One of the worst pay-per-views I've ever seen. I've seen some bad pay-per-views, and there were talented people on this show, but one of the worst pay-per-views I've ever seen. You know, and the good thing is, I don't know if you were going here, but I'll set you up in case you want to. The good thing is, it's a business expense for me. I can write this off. I have to think there's a lot of other people who paid $50 for this.
They might need to retain an attorney. Well, before we get there, I want to say one thing real quick and I'll finish up. This right here is the reason why that I am way, way past the point of disinterest in having anything to do with what they call wrestling these days. Not just for this company, but for any company, because it's all over the place. But this takes the cake. I would not have lasted 2 hours in that locker room backstage or in a production meeting with these people before I got in my car and told them all to kiss my fucking big fat white ass. I can't imagine why some of the people who know better are doing these things. And that's why I am just being Jim Cornette, and I'm totally ambivalent on what any of these people think about me and what I have to say. Because even if they're not doing the shit, they're complicit in the shit. Therefore, I blame them for the shit. So I just, if anybody needs an illustration as to why I am not now, nor will I ever again, unless Bobby Fulton runs a wrestling event, will I ever again appear on a wrestling event. This is why. Because people are doing this kind of shit. They've convinced enough of these goofy fans that they've got that it's supposed to be this way. And the people who know the difference will not say, oh, not no, but hell no. You're not going to do this if I'm on the show. I've got some fucking pride and self-respect. I'll be home. That's why I wash my hands of all of these people, and I will be sitting here calmly, hopefully most of the time, telling all of y'all what's wrong with it. Because that's the only goddamn contribution you can make anymore to this shit, is to explain what's wrong with it. I just wish that more of these people were a little smarter so they could pick up what I'm saying quicker, and I wouldn't have to go into so much detail about what's fucking wrong with them. And I'll say one more thing, and then we'll get back to your segue that you tried a minute ago. Also, here's the thing. When you talked about the people, the AEW fans, when they're back in the building, how the AEW fans would react, here's another thing we got to think about. These people wrestling for AEW in front of the AEW fans who react unlike any other wrestling audience in the world, if they get used to doing shit that those people like, then it will ruin everybody for actually having a regular wrestling match in any other promotion. Because then they'll just get all those bad habits. So I sincerely hope somebody maybe should moonlight on a local independent just to try to keep their game up. If you already know how to work somewhere else besides AEW just so you won't lose the talent. That's my little piece of advice. And for anybody who feels like that they were the victim of a bait and switch because they were advertised a professional wrestling event and what they got was a local stage show version of the play that the Gilligan's Island's castaways put on when Harold Hecuba landed on the island. How's that for a reference? Then I suggest that you call and gain immediate representation from somebody to get you your money back.
Call Stephen P. News. If you need to sue. An outlaw mud show or two. They'll sue their ass